Why would a little girl yell at a millionaire? What she saw could have killed him. The sun had barely cracked through the morning haze over Pasadena's quiet Elm Grove Crescent when the stillness was shattered. "Don't open that door, mister." The voice was high, urgent, cutting through the sleepy calm like a siren. Carter Vance, 48, a billionaire tech founder with a reputation for control, froze with his hand on the door handle of his obsidian black McLaren GT. The polished carbon fiber beast shimmered in the driveway, a symbol of his pristine world, planned, secure, unshakable. He turned slowly, brows furrowing. Across the street, a barefoot girl stood on her front lawn, her tiny frame shivering under a faded hoodie, purple pajama pants loose around her legs. She clutched a worn sketch pad like a shield, her dark curls bouncing as she took a tentative step forward. "I saw him," she said, voice cracking. "A man. Under your car. Before the sun came up. He had gloves. I think he put something there." Carter blinked, disoriented. A bomb threat? Here? In this exclusive Pasadena suburb? His instincts, trained more for acquisitions and IPOs than sabotage, dismissed the absurdity. He had a speech to give in San Diego in 2 hours. The launch of the VanceLink satellite division waited, and he prided himself on not traveling with security or staff, just the road and control. But then he looked at the girl again. She wasn't playing. She wasn't lying. There was real, shaking fear in her wide eyes. And something else, the courage to speak up. He crouched, barely, bent enough to glance beneath the McLaren's frame. Nothing at first, just the glow of sunrise on polished asphalt. Then, just behind the front axle, a black box, matte, rectangular, with a single red light blinking. His breath caught. He stood up slowly, fingers trembling as they reached for his phone. "Griffin, Pasadena House, full team, now." Exactly 22 minutes later, two black SUVs rolled to a silent stop outside his gate. 4 members of his private security detail emerged, dressed in Navy tactical gear. No sirens, no neighborhood alarm. The girl was still across the street, half hidden behind a bush, clutching her sketch pad to her chest like armor. "Motion-triggered device," said the lead agent, McCrae, crouching beside the McLaren. "If you'd started the car, sir." Carter didn't respond. His mouth was dry. He looked at the girl again. She had saved his life. Her name was Ariel Thomas, 8 years old, lived with her mother, Nina, who worked nights cleaning at the local hospital. She had been up before dawn, as usual, drawing in the living room window. That's when she saw him, a man in a hood, crouched under the car across the street, wires trailing from his hand. "I thought he was stealing," she whispered. "But then I saw something blink." Carter had crouched to meet her eyes, something he hadn't done for a child in years. He wasn't good with kids, didn't have any of his own, but in her he saw something unshakable. "You saved my life," he said. "I almost didn't say anything," she murmured, "but you did, and that's what counts." From there, the story unraveled faster than even Carter was prepared for. Ariel had drawn the man, a crude but chilling sketch. Him, the hoodie, the wires, the shape of the bomb. One detail stuck out, a chain on the man's wrist, a pendant, a single gold letter, K. That was when the tremor truly began inside Carter. His wife's name was Kendra. In the hours that followed, security footage was pulled from every house in the neighborhood. Facial recognition yielded no clear results. But a camera across the street, Nina Thomas's Ring cam, captured a sharper image. The man's gait, the way his left foot dragged slightly. Carter froze. "I know that walk." His head of security, Griffin, looked at him. "Sir?" "Kai Merrick. That limp, it's him." It all came back. Kai was Kendra's ex, a failed software developer who once sued Carter for stealing a prototype. The case had been dropped, but the bitterness lingered. Carter turned to Griffin. "Find out everything about Kai Merrick, but quietly, and look into Kendra's recent travel, and keep eyes on the Thomases. Quiet detail. No uniforms. I don't want the girl or her mother harmed." "Understood." Later that night, Carter sat alone in his home study, eyes fixed on the paused security footage. The image was grainy but unmistakable. A man with a limp, a pendant shaped like a K, and something even darker, a betrayal not just of trust but of survival. He whispered to himself, was it Kendra? He hadn't even noticed the life insurance adjustment she'd filed 3 weeks ago, a $20 million increase, and he was still listed as the insured. He didn't sleep that night. He just replayed one thing in his head over and over. Don't open that door. The next morning, Carter did something rare. He visited the Thomases' home. Nina answered, in scrubs, weary and startled. If my daughter caused trouble, she saved my life, Carter interrupted. Please, may I speak with her? Ariel came downstairs slowly, still in pajamas. He knelt to her level. You were brave. You trusted yourself when no one else could see what you saw. That takes strength. I was scared, she admitted. So was I, he replied. He gave her a box of pencils, premium graphite, the kind professional illustrators use. Her face lit up. Keep drawing out horizon, he said. Sometimes how you see the world saves it. Personal commentary. This is what struck me most. The fact that Ariel, a child with nothing to gain, chose to speak. When most adults would have looked away or second-guessed, she screamed. And that scream? It cracked open an entire conspiracy. It reminded me how often in life, the smallest voices carry the greatest truths. That's why stories like this aren't just for entertainment. They're reminders. His wife plotted the perfect crime, but he had one weapon she didn't expect, a child's truth. Carter Vance wasn't a man who liked silence. In the boardroom, silence meant indecision. At home, it meant tension. But tonight, inside his sprawling Pasadena estate, silence had a different shape. It had weight. It pressed against his ribs like a slow suffocation. He sat in his darkened study, sleeves rolled up, bourbon untouched. On the screen before him, security footage paused at 4:57 a.m. A man crouching beneath the McLaren, a blinking red light, a glint of gold, a K dangling from the wrist. It was the same chain he'd gifted Kendra the year Vance Tech crossed its first billion. So you always remember where it started, he'd said. She had kissed him then, softly, sincerely, or so he thought. Now all he could see was the shape of betrayal, clean, calculated, cold. He didn't want to believe it, but denial wasn't a luxury anymore. Griffin entered, his face unreadable, holding a manila envelope and a USB drive. We enhanced the footage from the neighbor's ring cam, also pulled Kendra's recent financial activity. And sir, you should see this. He plugged the drive in. A sharper image flickered to life. The man in the hoodie, the way he moved, the slight limp. Griffin froze the frame. That gait, it's unique. And the facial structure, once we boosted the shadows, look. Carter leaned in. That's not Kai. No, sir, Griffin said. It's Devin Merrick, his younger brother. Similar build, same limp. Kai's been living in Toronto for years, but Devin, he showed up in San Diego 6 weeks ago, under a fake name. Why would Kendra use Devin? Carter muttered. Because you'd recognize Kai, Griffin said. But Devin was the ghost. Just enough resemblance to plant doubt, but not enough to confirm. She used the brother of the man who once sued you, knowing it would bait your memory, but leave you uncertain. Carter clenched his jaw. And it gets worse, Griffin added. Kendra wired $75,000 to a shell company linked to Devin's last known residence. The transaction happened a week before the attempt. Later that night, Carter found himself in Ariel's sketch again. Not the physical drawing, but the moment it captured. The girl, the warning, the figure under the car. Ariel had noticed what seasoned adults, what Carter himself missed. That was the part that haunted him most. He thought of Kendra's voice, her long hours, her sudden interest in estate planning, the way she'd distanced herself, the quiet charity weekends she'd insisted on attending solo. In hindsight, every excuse had been a breadcrumb, and he had missed all of them. He opened an email from their insurance provider. 3 weeks ago, Kendra had adjusted his life insurance policy, doubled it, quietly, legally, slipped through under the guise of succession planning. He was still the insured. She was still the beneficiary. Payout, $20 million. He closed the laptop, hands shaking with rage. The next morning, he drove to the Reese Tech Tower downtown, bypassing the executive elevator. No guards, no fanfare. In the boardroom, Griffin laid out Kendra's travel receipts from the past 6 months. 3 trips to San Francisco, each one coinciding with events hosted by Merrick Data Solutions. Same hotel, same floor, multiple overlapping conference schedules. She's been seeing him for over a year, Carter muttered. Not Kai, Griffin corrected. Devin, the ghost brother. She kept the connection hidden under a charity front. Foundations, workshops, strategy panels. But the trail's there. They planned this together. Carter turned to the window, the city sprawling before him. I built this company with her, he said. I trusted her with my life, and she almost turned it into my death certificate. That afternoon, a courier arrived with an unmarked envelope. No return address. Inside, a printed email from Kendra's private server. Subject line, KM contingency option. The body of the message was short, clinical. If the insurance clears, use proxy votes to trigger leadership transition. Sympathy will eclipse scandal. Once Carter is out of the way, the board will stabilize. Out of the way, not divorced, not separated. Gone. Carter didn't flinch. He had already stopped mourning the marriage. But now, he was preparing for war. That evening, he didn't go home. Instead, he parked outside the Thomas home again, this time with a small box in hand. Nina opened the door, surprised. Twice in 1 week? She's earned it, Carter said. Ariel peeked from behind the hallway wall, notebook in hand. She stepped out shyly. I brought you something, Carter said, holding up a thin portfolio. Inside, a blank journal and a set of watercolor pencils. For your sketches, I thought maybe you'd want to keep drawing. Ariel smiled. Can I draw birds? As many as you want, Carter said. They sat quietly on the living room rug, her doodling, him watching. Then she asked, Are you still scared? Carter didn't answer right away. I was, he admitted. But not anymore. Good, she said, because people like that, they hide in the dark. And if you're not scared, they can't win. They tried to erase him, but he had one thing they didn't expect, a child's voice that refused to stay quiet. The trap wasn't about vengeance. Not really. Carter Vance had learned something in the wreckage of Betrayal, that true power wasn't in control or silence. It was in truth, and the truth didn't scream. It waited, patient, sharp, ready. So Carter let the rumor spread. Whispers slipped through industry channels like smoke. That he was stepping away, that the attempt on his life had left him rattled, that he'd instructed his lawyers to begin succession talks. He canceled public meetings, let his social feeds go quiet, shifted 2 private properties into limited access zones, and then he leaked one detail, a retreat estate in Burbank where he was supposedly convalescing. It was bait. Devin Merrick took it. At exactly 12:38 a.m., a silent ping lit up the surveillance feed. Devin breached the rear entrance of the Burbank property. He disarmed the alarm with unsettling precision. The man hadn't lost his edge. In his mind, this was his final act, the unfinished mission. But Devin didn't know the entire house was wired with motion-sensitive cameras, or that a mobile command van was watching from 3 blocks away. Inside, all lights were off, except one. A warm, amber glow from the dining room lamp illuminated a single folder on the table. Inside the folder were photos of Karen, of bank wires, of burner phones, of the pendant, and on top, a handwritten note. This ends with truth. You choose how. Devin froze. His breath caught. Behind him, the door creaked open. Carter stepped in. No guards, no weapon. Just one man against another. Devin spun, startled. You're supposed to be gone. Almost was, Carter replied. Devin's eyes narrowed. You ruined my brother. He ruined himself, Carter said. But this was your choice. I didn't plan to kill you. At first, Devin muttered. But she said you'd never see it coming. And she was right. Carter stepped closer. Kendra promised you glory, didn't she? Revenge. Redemption. Devin's jaw twitched. I was supposed to burn, Carter said, voice low. But I didn't. And neither did she. Sirens flared outside the window. Silent, pulsing red and blue. Devin didn't run. He didn't beg. He just sighed. Guess it's over. For you, Carter said. Not for me. At sunrise, Carter stood inside the Reese Tech press room, facing a wall of flashing cameras and wide-eyed employees. He wore no tie, no mask of charisma, just the raw lines of a man who had come through the fire. I know many of you have questions, he began, about me, about the company, about what comes next. He took a long breath. My wife, Kendra Vance, conspired with an outside party to remove me from this world. She failed, but I won't pretend I saw it coming. I didn't, and that's the real failure. The room was frozen. He turned slightly, gesturing to the audience. I owe my life to someone who had no reason to care. A little girl who screamed when everyone else stayed quiet. Carter's voice cracked slightly. Her name is Ariel Thomas, and because of her, I'm not here to mourn. I'm here to start over. The crowd erupted into applause. Not polite, but honest. Healing. 3 hours later, he stood with Ariel and her mother, Nina, in the Reese courtyard. You're giving a speech now? She teased. No more speeches today, Carter smiled. Just muffins. He handed her a paper bag. Lemon poppy seed, her favorite. She grinned. You remembered. He sat beside her on the stone bench. Can I show you something? She asked. He nodded. She flipped open her sketchbook. A new drawing. It was them, Carter and Ariel, standing together at the edge of a tunnel filled with shadows. She held a flashlight. He held nothing. You gave me the light, she said. He blinked. You were in the dark, she added. He nodded slowly. You're right. And then softer. Sometimes people want to stay in the dark. It's easier. Ariel shrugged. That's why you need someone who sees anyway. Later that week, Carter stood in court. Across the aisle, Kendra sat stone-faced, her attorneys murmuring at her side. She didn't look at him once. When the judge asked if he had a statement, Carter rose. I'm not here for vengeance, he said. I'm here because someone I trusted tried to erase me. But I'm alive because of a stranger, a child, a girl with no armor except instinct. He turned to Kendra. You were the closest person in my world, and what I lost was the part of myself that believed in you. But what I gained was clarity, then voice firm. You reminded me who I refused to become. The gavel fell like thunder. 15 years, no parole. Carter didn't look back. Weeks passed. The mural in Reese Tech's innovation wing was completed, designed by Ariel herself. It stretched across 30 feet of concrete. At its center, a man reaching for a door. Behind him, darkness. In front of him, a girl in green pajamas, one arm raised, mouth open mid-shout. Above them, dozens of birds in flight, painted in every color. It stopped employees in their tracks every morning, reminding them that bravery doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it's barefoot in the yard with a sketch pad. Carter returned to Ariel's home again, this time with papers. A deed. The mortgage cleared. The house was now theirs. No strings. Nina froze. Why would you? Because your daughter saved me, and I don't want her to ever worry where she's sleeping again. Tears filled her eyes. And one more thing, he said, kneeling in front of Ariel. We want your mural featured in a national campaign, a symbol of what it means to speak up. Ariel blinked. Can I put more birds in it? As many as you want, he said. So what do you think? Would you have listened to that little girl's voice? Or would you have shrugged it off like just another morning? Ariel didn't have money. She didn't have power, but she had courage. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change someone's fate. And Carter? He learned the hardest way that trust isn't built in boardrooms. It's revealed in moments of fear. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe that one voice, no matter how small, can make a difference, hit like, share this story, and never forget. The loudest warning sometimes comes from the quietest corner. Because in the end, heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just yell, "Don't open that door!"